In 1949, Virginia Woolf's essay collection was published posthumously, containing a line that would haunt readers for generations. If you do not tell the truth about yourself, you cannot tell it about other people. Read that again. Because embedded in those 17 words is an explanation for almost every failed relationship, every broken friendship, every conflict you've never been able to resolve. It's not about other people being difficult. It's not about the world being against you. It's about something far more uncomfortable. The lies you tell yourself create a distorted lens through which you see everyone else. When you can't face your own cowardice, you call others too sensitive. When you can't admit your own jealousy, you call others show-offs. When you can't acknowledge your own selfishness, you call others demanding. The philosopher Anais Nin wrote, "We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are." And if you're dishonest about who you are, if you're wearing masks, even you believe are real, then everyone you meet becomes a character in your fiction rather than a person in reality. Today, we're going to explore why self-deception is the root of almost every interpersonal failure, how some of history's most influential figures discovered this truth, and what happens when you finally stop lying to yourself. This won't be comfortable. Truth rarely is. But if you've ever wondered why your relationships keep following the same painful patterns, why conflicts repeat with different people, why you feel misunderstood, this might be the most important 40 minutes you spend this year. If you're ready for honest self-examination, consider subscribing and liking this video. What follows requires courage, but that courage changes everything. Let's begin. Part 1. The lie that started everything. Carl Jung,
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some honestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical.
Inner experience. He couldn't help others find their truth until he stopped hiding from his own. The same pattern appears throughout history. Part 2. When performance destroys authenticity. Walt Disney is remembered as the man who built a magic kingdom, the ultimate dreamer who brought joy to millions. The public Disney was the friendly uncle figure who appeared on television, smiling warmly, sharing his vision of a world where dreams come true. But the private Disney was something else entirely. His biographer Neil Gabler writes, Disney created an image so wholesome, so perfect, that he became imprisoned by it. He couldn't be human anymore. He had to be Walt Disney. Disney drove himself relentlessly. He demanded perfection from everyone around him. He micromanaged every detail because anything less than perfect threatened the image. His brother Roy, who ran the business side, once said, Walt stopped being a person and became a brand, and that brand consumed who he really was. The cost showed up in his relationships. Disney was distant from his daughters, demanding and often cold with his employees, unable to accept criticism or failure because it contradicted the image of the man who made dreams come true. His animator Ward Kimball recalled, "Walt couldn't admit when he was wrong. He couldn't show doubt. The image wouldn't allow it. So he just pushed harder, demanded more, and isolated himself further." Disney saw employees who questioned his decisions as disloyal, but he couldn't acknowledge his own inflexibility. He saw his brothers' concerns about finances as lack of vision, but he couldn't face his own reckless spending. He saw his family's desire for his presence as demands, but he couldn't confront his own inability to be vulnerable. The lies we tell ourselves become the accusations we level at others. By his later years, Disney had created an empire, but friends noted he seemed increasingly alone within it. The man and the myth had grown so far apart that genuine connection became nearly impossible. This is the cost of living behind a performance you can no longer escape. Part 3. The Mirror of Projection. Sigmund Freud identified a defense mechanism he called projection, attributing your own unacceptable qualities to others. But projection isn't just a psychological curiosity. It's the mechanism by which self-deception destroys relationships. Richard Nixon provides a stark example. Throughout his presidency, Nixon was obsessed with loyalty. He constantly suspected others of betrayal, created enemies lists, saw conspiracies everywhere. In the Watergate tapes, Nixon repeatedly accuses others of dishonesty, of playing games, of having hidden agendas. But what was Nixon doing? Lying, playing games, maintaining hidden agendas, operating from paranoia rather than principle. Bob Woodward, who helped expose Watergate, later wrote, "Nixon was describing himself. Every accusation was a confession." Nixon couldn't face his own dishonesty, his own willingness to abuse power, his own moral compromises, so he projected these qualities onto everyone around him. The result? He couldn't trust anyone. He built an administration based on loyalty oaths and surveillance, and ultimately, his inability to see himself clearly led to his downfall. The people who'd been loyal were caught in his schemes. The enemies he imagined were created by his own actions. This pattern repeats at every level. The parent who can't admit their own anxiety accuses their children of being too sensitive. The partner who can't face their own emotional unavailability becomes critical when their spouse seeks connection. The manager who can't acknowledge their own incompetence blames their team for every failure. When you lie to yourself, everyone else becomes a screen for your own rejected qualities. Part 4. The Courage of Self-Honesty. Some figures in history show us what becomes possible when you choose radical honesty with yourself. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson seemed to have it all. Professional wrestling fame, blockbuster movies, millions of fans, the image of unshakable strength and confidence. But in 2018, Johnson did something unexpected. He publicly revealed his struggles with depression. He talked about watching his mother attempt to end her life when he was 15, about his own battles with feeling worthless despite external success, about the times he'd felt completely lost. He said, "I reached a point where I didn't want to do a thing or go anywhere. I was crying constantly." This wasn't the image. This wasn't the brand. This was the truth. And Johnson made a conscious choice. "I realized that the strongman persona I'd built, that wasn't helping anyone, least of all me. Real strength is being honest about struggle." The response was overwhelming. Millions of people, especially men who'd been taught to hide vulnerability, reached out to share their own stories. Johnson's honesty didn't weaken his career, it deepened it. His performances became more nuanced. His connection with fans became more genuine. His relationships improved because he'd stopped hiding. Depression never discriminates. It took me a long time to realize that. I spent years thinking I had to be the strong one, the one who had it all together. That was exhausting and isolating. But here's what's remarkable about Johnson's honesty. It didn't just free him, it transformed how he saw others. He started a foundation focused on mental health. He began speaking openly about the masks men wear. He could recognize pain in others because he'd stopped denying his own. He said, "Once I stopped pretending to be invincible, I could finally see that everyone is fighting battles. Everyone is human. That changes how you treat people." This is only possible when you're honest about your own struggles, your own fears, your own limitations. Johnson's willingness to face the truth about his pain, his healing journey, his ongoing work, this gave him clarity about others. He could see when people were hiding behind strength because he'd done it himself. He could recognize defensive behavior because he'd examined his own defenses. He could hold space for others' complexity because he'd honored his own. This is what becomes possible when you stop lying to yourself. You can finally see others as they truly are, not as projections of what you're hiding. Part 5. The leader who faced himself. Abraham Lincoln is often mythologized as effortlessly great. But historians who study his letters and contemporaneous accounts find something different. A man who struggled with depression, self-doubt, and profound moral complexity. Joshua Wolf Schenk's book Lincoln's Melancholy documents Lincoln's bouts of severe depression, what they called melancholy or hypochondria, in the 1800s. Twice in his life, Lincoln's friends worried he might take his own life. He wrote poetry about death and despair. He was known for his sadness even as he told jokes and stories. But Lincoln did something unusual for his time. He didn't pretend this away. He acknowledged his struggles to friends. He wrote about them. He let them shape his perspective rather than hiding them. And this honesty transformed his leadership. Because Lincoln could face his own darkness, he could understand others' struggles. Because he'd wrestled with his own contradictions, personally despising slavery, while initially prioritizing union over abolition, he could navigate the moral complexities of the Civil War without self-righteousness. His second inaugural address remains one of the most remarkable political speeches ever delivered. As the Civil War was ending and the North was winning, Lincoln didn't gloat or condemn. He said, "Both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other. The prayers of both could not be answered. That of neither has been answered fully. This is the speech of a man who's faced his own capacity for wrongness." He continued, "With malice toward none, with charity for all, let us strive on to finish the work we are in." Lincoln could see Southerners as complex humans rather than simple villains because he'd faced the complexity within himself, including truths about himself that were painful to see. Part 6. The artist who chose truth. Frida Kahlo is known for her surrealist self-portraits, vibrant, haunting images that seem to stare into your soul. But what made her art so powerful was her refusal to lie about her experience. Kahlo survived polio as a child, leaving her with a limp. At 18, she was impaled by a metal rod in a bus accident, causing lifelong pain and medical complications. She endured over 30 surgeries. She couldn't have children. She experienced multiple miscarriages, and her marriage to muralist Diego Rivera was turbulent. He had affairs, including with her younger sister. Kahlo had every reason to create art that escaped reality, to paint fantasies, to pretend pain away. Instead, she painted her exact experience. The broken column shows her body open to reveal a crumbling stone pillar for a spine, held together by medical corset. Henry Ford Hospital depicts her miscarriage with medical and symbolic imagery that's almost unbearable to witness. She wrote in her diary, "I paint my own reality. Not an idealized version. Not what should be. What is?" And this honesty didn't just make her art remarkable, it transformed her relationships. Despite the pain Rivera caused her, Kahlo's letters reveal a woman who could see him clearly. She didn't pretend he was something he wasn't. She didn't lie to herself about the nature of their relationship. She wrote to him, "You deserve a lover who wants you disheveled." with everything and all the reasons that wake you up in a haste and the demons that won't let you sleep. She saw his flaws because she didn't hide from her own. Her friendships with other artists, from Leon Trotsky to Josephine Baker, were intense and genuine because Kahlo brought her whole self, unedited. The writer Carlos Fuentes said of her, "Frida was truth. She couldn't be any other way." Part 7. The Mirror Effect. What happens in your relationships when you start lying to yourself? Let me show you how this plays out. The lie, "I'm independent. I don't need anyone." The hidden truth. You're terrified of abandonment, so you push people away before they can leave you. The projection. You see others as needy or clingy when they want normal emotional connection. You judge them for the very need you're denying in yourself. The result. You end up alone, telling yourself it's because you're independent, never facing the fear that drove you there. The lie. "I'm a good person. I always put others first." The hidden truth. You have needs and desires you're ashamed of. You expect others to read your mind and fulfill them without you asking. The projection. When others don't intuit your hidden needs, you see them as selfish. You martyr yourself, then resent people for taking advantage, though you never set boundaries. The result. You're exhausted and bitter, surrounded by people you claim to love but secretly resent. The lie. "I'm logical. I don't let emotions control me." The hidden truth. You're terrified of vulnerability. Emotions feel like weakness or loss of control. The projection. You see others as too emotional or irrational when they express feelings. You dismiss their concerns as drama. The result. People stop sharing their inner world with you. You end up isolated, wondering why relationships feel shallow. Do you see the pattern? The psychologist John Welwood called this spiritual bypassing, using philosophy, logic, or self-improvement to avoid dealing with unresolved emotional issues. But it applies more broadly. Whatever you hide from yourself becomes the thing you can't tolerate in others. Part 8. The brutal gift of feedback. Here's a practice that requires tremendous courage, one that entrepreneur Ray Dalio built his entire company around: radical truth and radical transparency. Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, one of the world's largest hedge funds, created a culture where people are expected to say exactly what they think and receive the same in return. In his book Principles, Dalio writes, "If you don't look back at yourself and think, 'Wow, how stupid I was a year ago,' then you must not have learned much in the last year. But this only works if you're willing to hear hard truths about yourself." Dalio records all meetings. Anyone can challenge anyone, regardless of hierarchy. When he makes a mistake, it's documented and analyzed. This sounds brutal. Most people would hate this environment. But here's what Dalio discovered. The people who can't handle feedback about themselves also can't give accurate feedback about others. The same defensiveness that makes you reject criticism makes you unable to see others clearly. If you can't hear, "You were wrong about that," you also can't tell someone else, "You're wrong," without it becoming personal, without projection, without your own ego contaminating the feedback. Dalio writes, "The most important thing is that you develop your own principles and ideally write them down. But you can't develop real principles if you're lying to yourself about who you are and what you actually value versus what you wish you valued." Oprah Winfrey, who's conducted over 37,000 interviews, describes a similar realization. She said, "I had to face that I was people-pleasing, that I was saying yes when I meant no, that I was more concerned with being liked than being honest. Once I stopped lying to myself about that, I could finally have real conversations, not just interviews where I'm performing, but genuine exchanges." The turning point in her career, she says, came when she stopped trying to be Barbara Walters and started being herself, including the parts that didn't fit the beyond professional interviewer mold. Her authenticity gave others permission to be authentic. Part 9. The Relationship Laboratory. Yester Perel, one of the world's foremost relationship therapists, has spent decades studying what makes relationships fail or thrive. In her book, Mating in Captivity, she writes, "The quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives." But through years of couples therapy, she's identified a pattern. The conflicts couples think they're having are rarely the actual conflicts. A couple fights about dishes, the real issue. One partner feels their contributions aren't valued. A couple fights about sex, the real issue. One partner feels controlled, the other feels rejected, and neither can admit their own fear of intimacy. A couple fights about money, the real issue. Different values they've never honestly examined, often inherited from childhood experiences they haven't processed. Perel observes, "Most people come to therapy wanting me to fix their partner. The breakthrough happens when they're willing to examine their own contribution to the dynamic. But that examination requires brutal honesty." One of Perel's patients, call her Sarah, came to therapy furious that her husband was emotionally unavailable. Through months of work, the truth emerged. Sarah's father had been unpredictably rageful. She'd learned that men were dangerous when they showed strong emotions, so she'd chosen a man who didn't express feelings, then resented him for it. But here's the crucial part. Sarah had told herself she just wanted a calm, stable man. She'd never faced her own terror of male emotion. She'd never questioned why stable meant emotionally shut down. Once she faced this truth about herself, about her fear, about how her past was driving her present choices, she could finally see her husband clearly, not as defective, not as the problem, but as a person doing his own dance with fear and safety. Their relationship didn't magically transform, but the dynamic shifted from blame to understanding, from fix him to how do we both grow. This is only possible when you stop lying to yourself. Part 10. The Permission of Imperfection. Brené Brown spent years researching shame, vulnerability, and authenticity. Her TED Talk has been viewed over 60 million times. But here's what's remarkable about Brown's work. It started with her own breakdown. She describes having a breakdown/spiritual awakening when her research on vulnerability forced her to face how little vulnerability she allowed in her own life. She'd been presenting herself as perfectly competent, always having answers, never admitting struggle. Her therapist told her, that's what a breakdown is, a measure of shame, a painful crisis, a surrender. A coming out, it's a release of some big burden that's been weighing us down. Brown writes in The Gifts of Imperfection, authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. But that daily practice requires constantly catching yourself in self-deception. When you say, I'm fine, but you're not. When you perform confidence you don't feel. When you hide your needs and then resent others for not meeting them. When you judge others for qualities you're suppressing in yourself. Brown's research found that people with strong relationships share one quality. They believe they're worthy of love and belonging. But you can't believe you're worthy if you're constantly hiding who you really are. You're essentially saying, the real me isn't acceptable, I have to pretend. And if you're not acceptable to yourself, you can't truly believe others accept you either. You're always waiting for them to discover the truth and leave. This becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Part 11. The practice of self-truth. So how do you actually do this? How do you stop lying to yourself? It's not one dramatic moment. It's a practice. Here's what it looks like, drawn from these examples. 1. Notice your judgments of others. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. When you have a strong negative reaction to someone, really pay attention. Ask, what quality am I judging in them? Do I have this quality in any form? Am I judging them for something I do but call it something else? The person who irritates you is often showing you your own shadow. To track the gap between your story and your behavior, Lincoln's friend once said, Lincoln's life was his philosophy. What's the gap between who you say you are and how you actually behave? You say you value honesty, but do you tell white lies constantly? You say you value health, but what are your actual daily habits? You say you value relationships, but how do you spend your time? The truth isn't in your words, it's in your calendar, your bank account, and your repeated behaviors. 3. Sit with discomfort instead of explaining it away. Maya Angelou said, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. But there's also no greater agony than bearing a truth you're refusing to tell yourself." When something makes you uncomfortable, don't immediately rationalize it. Your partner says you're defensive. Don't immediately explain why they're wrong. Your body is telling you to rest. Don't immediately override it with "I should." You feel jealous of someone's success. Don't immediately cover it with "I'm happy for them." Sit with the uncomfortable truth first. Examine it. See what it's telling you. 4. Practice saying the truth out loud. Hemingway died because the gap between myth and reality became unbearable. Don't let the gap grow. Start small. "I'm feeling insecure right now. I don't know the answer to that. I made a mistake. I'm jealous. I'm scared." Not as performance, not for attention, but as practice in letting truth exist without immediate editing. 5. Find people who can handle your truth. Frida Kahlo surrounded herself with people who could handle reality, artists, revolutionaries, people who'd lived through their own pain. You can't be honest with yourself in isolation. You need witnesses, people who won't shame you for being human. But here's the key. You can only attract people who can handle truth if you're practicing truth yourself. Authentic people recognize each other. 6. Examine your family patterns. Carl Jung said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." What did your family lie about? What emotions weren't allowed? What truths were too dangerous to speak? You're likely carrying those same patterns, the same evasions, the same self-deceptions. This isn't about blaming your parents. It's about recognizing inherited patterns so you can choose differently. 7. Write it down. Virginia Woolf kept diaries her entire life. She wrote, "In my diary, I meet myself." Writing forces specificity. You can't stay vague. You can't gloss over details. You have to face what's actually true. Try this. Write, "The truth about me right now is..." And don't stop for 10 minutes. No editing, no censoring, just truth. You'll be surprised what emerges. Part 12. What becomes possible. Here's what shifts when you stop lying to yourself. Your conflicts become solvable. Because you're dealing with the actual issues instead of the surface ones. You're not fighting about dishes. You're addressing feeling undervalued. That's something you can work with. Your relationships deepen because people can finally meet the real you. Not the performance, not the persona. You! And when people love the real you, flaws, fears, contradictions, that love means something. Your judgment of others softens because you recognize that everyone is human. Everyone is struggling with their own shadows. The person who irritated you becomes interesting. What are they hiding? What are they struggling with? Your energy increases because you're not spending massive amounts of energy maintaining illusions. David Foster Wallace wrote, "The truth will set you free, but not until it is finished with you." Yes, facing truth is hard, but maintaining lies is exhausting. Your decisions improve because they're based on reality instead of the story you wish were true. You choose partners who actually fit your needs instead of who you think you should want. You choose careers that align with your real values instead of performing someone else's version of success. You set boundaries based on your actual limits instead of who you wish you were. You become trustworthy, not just to others, to yourself. You keep the promises you make because you only make promises aligned with truth. Closing, the ultimate test. Virginia Woolf ended her life by walking into a river, her pockets filled with stones. In her final note to her husband, she wrote, "I feel certain I'm going mad again, and I shan't recover this time." Some scholars argue that Woolf's intense commitment to truth Her refusal to look away from reality, both external and internal, made her vulnerable to the darkness she chronicled. Maybe that's true, but I'd offer a different interpretation. Woolf saw clearly. She told the truth about herself and others with unflinching precision. What destroyed her wasn't the truth. It was living in a world that couldn't handle it. A society that demanded women be quiet, pleasant, and dishonest about their inner lives. You don't live in that world anymore. You live in a moment where authenticity is possible, where seeing clearly is valuable, where truth-telling about yourself first, then about others, can actually connect you instead of isolating you. But it requires courage. The courage to look at yourself without flinching. The courage to admit what you've been hiding. The courage to let others see you as you are. The courage to see them as they are, not as you need them to be. This isn't easy work. It's not a weekend workshop or a 10-point plan. It's the work of a lifetime. But it's the only work that actually transforms your relationships. Because Virginia Woolf was right. If you do not tell the truth about yourself, you cannot tell it about other people. And until you can tell the truth about other people, see them clearly, without your projections and defenses and self-deceptions in the way, you cannot truly connect with them. You cannot love them as they are. You cannot be loved as you are. You can only play roles and wonder why it feels hollow. The alternative is terrifying, I know, but the cost of lying to yourself is higher. It costs you every real relationship you could have had. Choose truth. Choose growth. Choose the discomfort of honesty over the slow death of self-deception. Your relationships are waiting on the other side. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. This work matters, and your support helps me create more content that goes this deep. And here's my question for you. What's one truth about yourself you've been avoiding? You don't have to share it in the comments, but at least be honest with yourself about what it is. That's where it starts. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.